Hello YouTube, this is Dakota from Bowtied Media, and today we have the final installment of the Reviews Roundup for the year of 2024 from projects from, November and December of 2024, my ratings and quick reviews on them, so let's do it. First up, we've got Leotrix with Mortal. I've really struggled sometimes to find the genius of Leotrix, and after this project, I'm still wandering. Leotrix's signature harsh rhythm has hit a wall for me on this latest EP in large part due to the sheer amount of confusion on what's supposed to be happening in the melodies. Sure, the back end of the songs are decent, but I just do not understand what's appealing about the high ends on this EP at all. I'm fine not coming back to this, and this will score a Bowtied 3 out of 10. Then we got Darby with Party, a set of 4 party anthems that do exactly what they're supposed to do, even giving us a couple of flavors to pick from as well. Darby's bassline on his house tracks are otherworldly at this point and definitely a strong suit for the project. He just makes his house tracks bounce so hard, and this will score a Bowtied 7. Then we got Marcix with Digital Reassurance. One of the best signings from Disciple this year, Marcix really broke out on this latest EP and deserves all the recognition. This complextro rhythm hybrid isn't anything too fresh in the scene, but with a mixture of vinyl scratches, jittery synths, and an ever-changing melody, Marcix has carved a sound of their own, and this will score a Bowtied 7. Then we've got Lemaitre with Blue. Another standard Lemaitre project is still yet another great project in my eyes. More of the same style and tone that I love. This will score a Bowtied 7. Then we got Must Die with Vampire Weapon Midnight, a substantially stronger project than his first Vampire Weapon installment. Mixed in with a couple of duds for me are some of Must Die's strongest tracks this side of 2020. Holistically though, I would like to see a full-length Must Die record with a consistent sound or genre. I still get a sense of auditory whiplash from this record even still. I'll score it a Bowtied 6. Then we've got Marshmello with The Roots. Somehow this is Marshmello's best project to date, and while going back to his roots may have helped, there is a lot of question marks around this EP still. The mixing is inconsistent, the tracks vary wildly in quality, and I'm not even sure Marshmello even knows what his roots are because he's actually hasn't gone back to the sound he came up from. It's an odd collection of tracks, but I guess it works somewhat? Bowtied 6. Then we got CloudNone Direct with Baby. These two always pump out incredible tunes, and I love seeing them work together as much as they have lately. That being said, this EP is a little bit on the tamer side for them with 2 real standout tracks and a couple more reserved cuts. Their sound as a duo has evolved so much, and this is just a natural step forward. Bowtied 7. Then we got Jywolf with The Red Eye Home. Jywolf's latest project feels almost completely removed from his last, and I'm not a big fan of that. Instead of big emotional turns and disco influences, The Red Eye Home is a fairly underwhelming stutter house record with little star power. I'll give this a Bowtied 5. Then we've got Convexity with Transmissions, a brilliantly bizarre fusion of rhythm and vaporwave aesthetics that scratch a truly unique itch within the rhythm space that feels fresh. While Convexity is balancing 2 adjacent genres, he's still keeping some of his signature sound design and soloing at the forefront of this project. This is without a doubt his highest quality, most complete piece of work yet. Bowtied 8. Then we got Code Pandorum with La Fin Absolue du Monde. Code Pandorum really hit the nail on the head in terms of tone and sound design. This record is moody, dark, and sinister, all while not feeling forced into that setting. The production is generally great, and there are way more great tracks than I would say there are duds. And this is a Bowtied 7. Then we got CloudNone Direct with Fading. While CloudNone Direct never miss, getting 2 EPs so close to each other has really made me recognize how similar their collaborative projects have been up to this point. I still love the atmosphere and the production of this project, but I'm now hitting the point where we could use a bit of a tonal switch up. Still a Bowtied 7. Next up, we've got Kendrick Lamar with GNX. And pardon my language here, but while Kendrick Lamar embraces a fuck a double entendre, I want y'all to feel this shit mentality for this surprise record, his flow, lyricism, and narrative storytelling is still immaculate. This record is very clearly Kendrick just having fun with this new sound and tone from his most recent beef, just in a more fleshed out way stylistically. This is a Bowtied 8. Then we got Resurrect with Ruins. As someone who typically hates this aggressive metallic dubstep sound, Resurrect definitely has something going on here. I wouldn't say I'm particularly a fan of this EP, but I don't think any of it is bad by any means. Just a project that's not necessarily for me in the end. And I'll give this a Bowtied 6. Then we've got TYNAN with Angry Music, the roughest EP I've heard from TYNAN yet. I do not resonate with any of the melodies, I think the mixing is poor, and the idea is void of any meaning. I get that it's supposed to be angry music, but it can be done in a more tasteful way, in my opinion. This is Bowtied 2. Then we got Just a Gent with The Answer Is. Just a Gent's sophomore record stylistically picks up where he left off from in his 2022 debut. This time around, though, Just a Gent has valued more quantity over quality. Almost 20 minutes longer than his first album, and having landed just over the hour mark, The Answer Is definitely jam-packed with atmospheric future-based tunes. Maybe even too much. If anything, I think this record is perhaps too inflated. With 21 songs, this LP can feel like a lot to get through sometimes. And with the slew of shorter tracks here, I often feel like individual tracks didn't get enough love and or attention that I maybe thought they deserved. Holistically, this is still a great album, just a step down from the former. Bowtied 7. Then we got Elephante with Cope. I'm not loving this new direction Elephante is taking at all. This generic future bass, melodic electropop is a sound that's already stale, and he's not reinventing anything new here. Bowtied 4. Then we got Flaws with Refocus. A nice serene little EP from Flaws with a strong sense of carelessness and a state of sort of free flow. On the production side of things, this is pretty much as simple as you get in terms of Flaws music, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, just a little too tame in this case, I think. Bowtied 6. Then we got BeutNoise with Sunken Valley. Within a sea of uninspired rhythm EPs, BeutNoise continually goes above and beyond in terms of creativity. And even though this is very evidently an overarching rhythm project, this thing is so much more than just that. It's fantastic. This is Bowtied 8. Then we got 1788L with New Type Volume 1. This is some of the best intense, dark, electro-leaning drum and bass I have heard straight up. 1788L has unlocked something magical here, and considering this is just a first volume, I'm so eagerly anticipatory for what's next. This is something so, I don't know, there's something so unique about this project in the style of aggressive drum and bass that just hits unlike anything else. And trust me, there is a lot of that out there. This is a Bowtied 9. Then we got Oppidan with Untitled Signs. Within the ecosystem of truly UK garage stylized projects, this is one of the best this year. Oppidan has a certain groove and rhythm to its production that is just an extra pep in its step that it's got. The production is super clean, and he's already experimenting with different sounds and sonic ideas. Oppidan will be one of the biggest names in garage in years to come, I'm sure of it, if he's not already. Bowtied 8. Then we got Psytrance Mafia with Breathe Underwater. A solid collection of Psytrance tracks for a new combined alias, but nothing we haven't already heard from these two artists. It's still top quality Psytrance, and it's still got all the Infected Mushroom and Blastoise production elements that we've come to know and love. Bowtied 7. Then we got Party Favor with The Party Never Dies. Party Favor may have had its ups and downs throughout the year, but I'm really glad he managed to pull together his best work for his finale. This is a great balance of kind of party anthems, quality, and earworms. The Party Never Dies is a send-off that most artists dream of. And this is Bowtied 8. Then we got Above and Beyond with Tranquility Bass Volume 2. Another solid trance project from Above and Beyond with some of their highest highs in quite some time. It feels like they are finding their focus again and honing in on a particular style and tone that will bring them to even higher heights. I'm excited for the future. Bowtied 7. And we got Sora with Before You Go. There are definitely some moments that work really well throughout the EP, but a majority of the time, Sora's production feels wayward and lost. There are moments of brilliance and fascinating rhythm, but they're more rare than I would have wished they would have been. This is a Bowtied 6. Then we got Gyrofield with Flower Burial. I was having a hard time really getting into this Gyrofield project as the ideas felt scattered and the production pretty linear. This style of dense neurofunk doesn't typically resonate with me, but I felt like I was lost the whole time listening to this project. I'll give this a Bowtied 5. Then we got Tape B with Distortion Theory. This is the quintessential modern dubstep EP. Never have I heard a project that feels so perfectly in line with both the modern trends of dubstep in 2024, while also honoring the past from which it grew. Tape B has crafted something truly unique with this EP, and that shouldn't be understated. Bowtied 9. Then we got Shallou with 24 Autumn. Shallou is one of those rare artists who exceed in these kind of short-form projects like this 4-track EP. Each track feels incredibly cohesive with one another while having just enough variety as to not feel so samey. A much stronger showing than his summer edition. Bowtied 8. And we got Mr. FijiWiji with All My Love, another year-end record from Chef Fij, as, it's essentially a culmination of his tracks released throughout the year. Holistically, you can really hear the subtle differences in his soundscape from this album to his last, yet overall is still the same old Mr. FijiWiji I've come to know and love. It's a great little package of garage tunes that are dominated by plucky lead synths. And this is Bowtied 7. Then we got Spag with The Leftovers. Spag collection of leftover tracks from his career of production up to this point is exactly what you'd expect. And for some people, that's the greatest news, and for others, it's whatever. And I'm sadly in the latter camp. There are definitely some really exciting tracks that I'm glad finally got their day in the light, but a majority of the tunes were rightfully on the back burner for so long. Bowtied 6. Then we've got Turquoise Death with Further World. Turquoise Death closing out the year on an incredibly high note. While I love their full-length record that came out this year as well, something about this EP just speaks to me. Maybe it's the more jungle inspirations and less emphasis on the atmospheric side of things, but this is just pure bliss. Bowtied 9. And finally, the year is wrapped up with Jaren's Light Years. Jaren's sophomore record is a more streamlined take on the experimental side of his debut, yet is one that ends up being a little bit messier. The first half of this record was comparatively struggling, while the back half is actually just Jaren's best music yet. And it's that dichotomous relationship that ultimately lands this album as a touch weaker than his debut record, even with higher highs. Bowtied 8, though. And that is it. We are done. The Reviews Roundup for 2024. It has come to an end. Now it's time for the final year in review videos, which are going to be a blast. So without any further ado, I'm Dakota from Bowtied Media, and I'll see you guys in another video.